Hey guys, it's Balrog. Welcome back to my guide to the Monopolized achievement in the Halo Master Chief Collection. This is part 5, the level The Oracle. So this is usually a pretty long mission, but we're going to do what we can to make it shorter and easier. The skulls I have on are Boom and Grunt Funeral, although neither are really necessary because there aren't very many grunts in the level, as well as Grunt Birthday Party and Piñata as well. So, let's get started. Generally, what you want to do is throw a plasma grenade right on this grunt and kill him, but I did not do so in this run. That saves about 10 seconds or so of dialogue, but I wanted that time to talk. So, we're going to run here and go to the bottom, and we're going to use our energy sword to destroy the 5 flood bodies lying here so that the infection forms don't repossess them. Also, make sure to swap and get this carbine, swap your plasma rifle for it. In a moment, we'll be taking this sentinel beam, but not quite yet because we want to get ammo for the carbine. There's 4 bodies, pick up this carbine ammo. Slay that last body, and then you might as well swap your sword, even though it hasn't been much. Reload the carbine, and I like to throw the carbine right by the store so I can get it right on the way out. So I'm going to do a series of jumps here to the top of the middle to make the infection forms go a bit faster. You don't really have to do this, so if you can't make these jumps, it's no problem. Jump up onto this ledge from one of those 2 ledges, onto this pillar. Onto this pillar, make sure you're on the gray/black part of that pillar. Onto here, break these windows right here, and jump onto the middle rail right here, which is the best position to see all of the places where the flood come out. Shortly after the heretic leader finishes talking, the flood will start pouring out of these holes here. There are 8 total, and you can't really tell what holes the flood are going to start pouring out of, so just try to get them if you can. So let's see. There's some coming out of here. And you just kind of to swap back and forth and hope you find them coming out somewhere. I got one there. Sometimes you get 2 groups. And then after that, flood will start spawning in the middle here. So, deal with these guys. And your friends down below will also be hunting down the infection forms. Around the time you kill the second group in here is about the time you want to start running for the door. About right now. I like to walk over and stand right on the carbine, so as soon as the door opens, we can just swap and run right out. So let's discuss this elevator. The elevator isn't atrociously hard if you just do it normally, but we're going to do a head glitch here. A couple different head glitches, actually. I'm going to discuss what head glitches are pretty soon, but first, let's discuss the mechanics of the elevator itself. So we can skip the last couple minutes of the elevator, but unfortunately, unless you're playing co-op and do a very specific trick, there's no way to skip the entire elevator. You still have to be on the elevator for a little over 3 minutes or so total. So as soon as that door opens, you want to get on the elevator as soon as you can, because that's what starts the timer to allow the elevator to start moving down. You'll hear a bunch of gears start to shift into position, and then about 40-45 seconds later, the elevator will start to go down. We're almost to that point in the video right here, so I think I'm going to look left in just a minute. And as soon as the elevator starts going down, it's going to be about 2.5 minutes before we'll be able to drop off the side. Yep, just started going down right there. And it's about 2:30 in the video now, so around the 5-minute mark we'll be able to drop down, and I'll talk more about that a bit later. Right now, let's discuss head glitching. So, Halo 2 has a mechanic where enemies can only visually find you if they see your head. If they see the rest of your body and your head is hidden, they will not know where you are. So, we can just stick our head in a piece of geometry like this and we are effectively hidden even if they can see our body. You can do this with both the Arbiter and the Master Chief. However, it works in a few more places with the Arbiter than it does with the Chief because the Arbiter actually has a longer neck, so he's able to stick it in farther and stick it into a few more places. As is the custom for virile elites like the Arbiter. Also important to know, if an enemy already has line of sight on you and they see you put your head into the wall, it will not work. You'll need to break line of sight first. And also, if an enemy happens to bump into you while they are walking around or doing something else, they will also find your location that way. So in just a moment, I'm going to move to a different head glitch location actually, one that I personally prefer, although I did want to showcase this one because it is a little bit safer when you first get started, because when your guys are fighting the Flood and the Sentinels, sometimes you catch a spare grenade, sometimes you catch a spare Sentinel, and you'll see it in just a moment here. Best practice in both of these places is to just keep walking forward. You can stop, and it only matters a couple of times, like when it moves to the side right here I'm going to show you. But I think I'm going to jump to the next position right here, get out, and jump right into this little alcove. And you are in. And again, you can't just get into this position right as soon as you get on the elevator. You might have to kill a couple of Flood on the right side so they don't see your head go into the wall. That's usually what I do, but either way works. As you can see, I've been running into the pillar the entire time here. I'm just going to demonstrate real quick what happens. I'm stopping running for just a fraction of a second here, and you can see it kind of pulls away from you. Only when it's moving away from you. That's the only time you really have to worry about it. So best practice is just to keep running into the pillar. Also, as you can see, Flood are just all around me. They can easily see my body, but they cannot see my head, so we are completely safe here. We are coming into the final rotation right now. As you can see, we have about 30 seconds left on the elevator, so I'm going to look right here in just a second. right now. And make sure you're looking at your own timer here. Make sure about 2.5 minutes have passed since your elevator started going down, since our timers might not line up exactly. So as soon as these gears stop moving here, there's going to be a few seconds of silence, and then you'll hear the ping that the elevator is going to start going down. We're going to immediately cloak and jump where I do here. I'm going to be quiet so we can hear it together. So follow what I do here. You want to go off this edge kind of slowly. You don't want to go off too fast or you actually bump off the wall and get knocked further. Jump up on this slip and then down to this one. And then you kind of want to be just barely dropping off and pressing forward the entire time. That's the safest way to get down there. But now I'm actually going to cut to a different run and show a completely different way to do that. If you don't want to deal with the head glitching, if you don't want to deal with just counting the timer and watching the clock, here is a completely different way to do it. So you are again going to want to get onto the elevator as soon as you can just to start those gears moving to start that timer. Then you can actually get off the elevator for a few seconds just to be safe here. Kill the flood that are on there, kill the sentinels. You can hide behind this doorway, but we do want to be back on the elevator around the time it's supposed to take off because the elevator actually will not take off unless you are on it. So we're going to get in the middle here, and around the time the 40-second mark is passed, the elevator is going to start going down, and we are just going to jump right back off of it. You do actually want to keep kind of a close eye on it, kind of close to this platform, because once the elevator does start going down, it'll start going down quite quickly. So there we go. It is now descending, and we are just going to stay up here while it descends. We might even pay Halfjaw a visit and just see what he has to say here.
Go, Arbiter. I'll follow when our reinforcements arrive.
Sounds good. We'll see you in Sacred Icon, Halfjaw. Anyway, so the plan is we are going to wait until this tower right here descends a certain amount, until it gets in that same position except much lower. Then we're going to jump down to the elevator platform, then use it to cascade down here like we did previously. So we're basically doing the exact same thing, except we're going to stand up here and jump down instead of head glitching and watching the timer. So I'm actually going to fast forward here, just so we can get a bit closer to the time. Feel free to run around and do whatever you'd like here, just keep an eye on the position of the tower. Also worth noting, this is a bit slower. The elevator actually does activate a bit slower as you go down. You do lose about 20-ish seconds, I think, doing this method. But you don't have to watch the timer, and you don't have to deal with head glitching if you don't want to. So now the tower is in position. As soon as it starts to descend again, we're going to jump right on top of it. There we go. Jump right to the top here. Then drop to the right side, cloak right before you hit the bottom, and now we're going to do the same thing. Don't go off there too hard or you might bounce back and go off. Drop down to this lid. Drop down to the bottom, holding forward, and we are down. I'm going to transition back to the original run here. 2 flood will come out in front of you, and there's carbine ammo at the end of the hall if you need it. This next room is without a doubt the most dangerous in the entire level. So I highly recommend that, since we've saved so much time on the other levels already, and since we're going to get this one quite a bit under par anyway, that you take your time, take an extra minute or two, and clear slowly and clear efficiently, and just be safe. So your priority here is killing this elite right here, and there are also 2 grunts that are going to be on turrets. That elite is the priority just because he's a bit more dangerous than the flood and a bit harder to kill. So after we kill the initial wave of enemies, which are all the flood on the ground right now, as well as that elite and those 2 grunts, 3 elites with carbines are going to come from the door behind us, but they will not spawn until we are down in the middle here and until all this wave is cleared. So I just recorded a pretty long-winded explanation of exactly how the door opens, exactly what the timer is, and exactly what the triggers are, but I'm just going to put that in the comments instead because I would rather talk about tactics here. And as I've mentioned before, I'm not necessarily going for speed runs with these guides, I'm going for an accessible way for people to get monopolized. So, as you notice, for this first part, I'm just hanging out back here on the edge of the room with the sword and with the sentinel beam. The sentinel beam is fantastic for taking out the exploders. Basically, you just tickle them with it slightly and they blow right up. I will be swapping to a carbine relatively shortly, though. So that was the end of the first wave, and as you can see on my radar, the elites have finally come from above here. There should be 3 of them, and they all have carbines. Continue to stay back here in these corners and let them come to you, like this guy foolishly did. If you want to be safe while you replenish your shield, just head glitch into the wall right here. And as a reminder, if the enemy sees you go into the head glitch, it will not work, as I am about to demonstrate right here. This guy ended up seeing me try to do it, and he still knew where I was, so I just had to deal with him normally. For these flood combat forms, if you do end up killing them with anything except for the sword that doesn't destroy the body, do make sure you take the sword and go chop the body up as well, just to make sure the infection forms cannot get back into it. And right after these guys die is a pretty good time to swap the sentinel beam out for the carbine. So I suppose now, since I have a bit of time, I can talk about the triggers to the room and how to open the door at the end. Also note, right here I'm looking for a flood form that I know must be caught up in the ceiling there because it's not progressing. That's important to the trigger as well. So after you come into the room for the first time and you clear the initial wave of enemies, being the elite, the 2 grunts, and the first wave of flood, there he is. After that wave is cleared, those 3 elites with the carbines come in from the door behind you, and flood also start dropping in right from above in those little alcoves. Once those 3 elites die and 4 flood that drop from the alcoves die, a minute-long timer starts. At the end of that minute-long timer, after the next wave is cleared, the door will open and those next 2 elites and 3 grunts will come out. However, the flood that drop down from those alcoves have a very bad habit of getting stuck in the ceiling, which is where I was looking for that one flood that I knew must have been up there because I wasn't getting the checkpoint and the next wave wasn't coming. When you're speedrunning this, the tactic is to come in and immediately jump down, kill the 2 grunts, kill the elite, kill the entire first wave, and immediately jump back up, meet those 3 elites at the door, sword them all, and then get along the top and kill all the flood as they come down, immediately starting the timer. So for the next minute or so, we're going to get bombarded by infinitely spawning flood. You can stay along the sides here just to be safe. And as you can see, I got back up. I did a specific jump where I jumped on the little curb right by the beam, and then you're able to do a crouch jump back up to the second story. So at this point, about a minute has passed since I killed that last flood up there to start that timer. So as soon as this wave is clear, that door should open. I'm just wasting some time there looking up to the ceiling to show where more flood might be if they weren't already all cleared. So I believe I only have about 3 flood left here. As you can see, where I'm shooting the flood is right in the infection form on their chest, which is basically the headshot for the flood. So here's the last one here. The door should be opening right about now. There we go. So I'm going to throw a couple of grenades in here. You can also camo and run past these guys into this room. However, this door will not close if there are any enemies near it, and you won't be able to load in the next area. So the level is actually almost over, to be honest. We only have a little bit of fighting left, then we will do the infamous elevator glitch and be completely invulnerable for the rest of the level. More on that when we get to it. So, go ahead and deal with this carrier form first. As you can see, the second carrier form got blown off the edge thanks to Boom. There is a plasma rifle that combat form is holding that also went off the edge there. If that doesn't go off the edge in your run, I recommend temporarily swapping your carbine for it and using it to kill the infection forms that are following you, because you actually don't want these guys behind you in the next area because they do quite a bit of damage to your shield in Halo 2, and if you don't have a shield, they will just kill you instantly if they hit you. So this pack here, which I just threw a grenade at, can consist of anywhere between 1 grunt and 2 elites and 4 grunts. It looks like in our run here we just got 2 elites and no grunts. So we'll finish this guy off and grab his carbine ammo and be on our merry way here. If this was a standard speedrun, you could also just sword fly up here, but that is neither here nor there for the purpose of this particular run. So this next pack is also a bit variable, but there are always 3 sentinels that spawn over here on the side. And if you keep an eye on my radar, you can actually see that I moved up a bit too far here and also spawned in the guys that are in the next room. Generally, you can just camo and run past them, but I actually had planned on killing them for the purpose of this guide anyway. As you can see, my guys are adamant about getting grenades to that particular beam right there, even though it is nowhere near any enemies at all, but, you know, good on them for trying, I suppose. Cleaning up here, this is one of the last fights before we'll just be invincible for the remainder of the level. After this one, we'll go into the next room, and then we'll have to kill 4 flood forms and 3 sentinels that are going to be in combat with each other as well. So, relatively smooth sailing is on the horizon in the pretty near future. Entering the room, we're going to be looking for those 4 flood combat forms and 3 sentinels. Just knocking them out as we can, speeding things up just a little bit. My sword is almost empty, but you know how it is. We'll swap one. There's a full sword at the top of the elevator here. We just have to make it a little bit farther. The sentinels helped us out with those combat forms, so that is it. We're going to skip the cutscene, and then come over here and do a couple of jumps. You actually want to do this quite quickly. I stopped to point out this jump here. You can do a grenade jump up to there to save about a second or so, but since I pointed that out, this sword flood actually got in my way there and caused me a bit of danger. I recommend you invis right there just to make sure these sentinels get on those flood forms, but I did not. So, we have reached the infamous invincibility elevator. So I made a complete fool of myself here, but what you want to do is go around the back of the elevator, hit the button to send the elevator up without you on it, then walk right where I am right now, where the elevator is going to come back down, hit the button again and make it come down on top of you. It generally happens much faster than I just did it there. You can do it much faster, but I messed the button up a little bit. Either way, we are now completely invincible and cannot take any combat damage for the entire rest of the level, although you still can die from being knocked off the edge or from falling off the edge, so do be aware of that. Otherwise, we cannot die. So, now it's time to take a victory lap around to cut a few cables. These cables aren't actually eligible to be attacked until quite a few seconds after you cut the previous one, so no big rush between cables. You can just take your time, swap weapons if you need to. As you can see, I swapped my empty sword for a full one there. Almost done cutting the cables here. So, one thing to note is when we get back down, we actually have to jump down the hole in the middle there, although we want to basically get up to the hole and wait about 2 or 3 seconds before we jump down. And this is going to be to give the elevator a few seconds to spawn, since it's actually not there, since we didn't take the elevator up. So, we're going to walk up to this hole here, and count to about 2 or 3, and jump down. And you should see the elevator spawn right now. Excellent. So you do have to do a small jump to get above this lip, but now the gravity is going to be very weird until we get down to the section with the heretic leader. So try not to jump any more than you have to. It's actually important that you don't turn Sputnik on for this level as well, as that will decrease your fall speed even further. So, there isn't really too much to talk about in this part of the level until we get to the heretic leader at the end there. Just run through. We're basically just going to be running through the level of the Arbiter, except in reverse. Sword lunge or sword fly toward enemies as you can, just to speed things up a little bit. Here we're going to get into the Banshee, and then take an immediate left, and boost over here, and crash into this part. I actually skipped this cutscene, but it's a little bit of a callback to the Halo CE level, the Maw. And we're back in the Arbiter. We're going to go through this door and run down to the right, drop down, and immediately to the right again. And you can also jump back up onto this ledge here where we came, but you don't really need to. You can just run through normally. This is the part where, in the end of the level, the Arbiter, we just did this jump and invised and skipped past pretty much everything until we get to that last room. We're doing pretty well on part time here. The part time for the level the Oracle is 25 minutes, and I believe this run was a 16:30 something, so we ended up shaving a little over 8 minutes off the part time, which is pretty nice. You don't need to shave as much time off the part time as I'm doing in these runs, especially on missions like Cairo, where you might even go over the part time a little bit, but you do want to generate some extra time that we're going to use as leeway for missions like Regret and Gravemind. Not too much extra to say here. We're almost back to the boss room. Doing a little bit of sword lunging just to make it a bit faster. Up a couple last ramps here, and then we should be back in business. So, the boss has 2 holograms he always uses, and then his real body. You can actually tell which one the real body is because you can see his breath coming out, as I'll demonstrate up here. So the first thing we're going to want to do is get on the ship, which you can usually find him up here. And then I like to swap the carbine out for these dual needlers right here. Then use this thing to boost back on top of the ship. And the heretic leader will be hiding in one of these alcoves on the side. And there he is. Notice his breath coming out there. Around the time he's ending his dialogue, you can fire a volley at him, and that will just end that phase immediately. Then just keep an eye out for where he comes down next. There he is. We looked around just as he advised us. I'll be quiet here so you can kind of hear his dialogue and then hear where I shoot.
All that time and effort, and the best the Forerunners could do was put these foul creatures on ice.
There's another one. I believe we have just one more here. And as you can see, he calls his clones shortly afterwards, but if you've already shot your needles, they should get him every time. I actually shot this one a bit too early. It should have actually been about halfway through the sentence, "Come, Arbiter, let me show you where they went."
Come, Arbiter, let me show you where they went.
And that is a wrap for that one. As you can see, I didn't have much needler ammo left, but if you happen to run out, you can always just wait for him to come down a bit and then sword him out. Oracle is a bit of a long mission normally, so hopefully these strategies will help you get through more quickly and more easily. I really do appreciate you watching the video, thank you very much for coming, and I will see you on the next one.
That is the Oracle. So it is. Come, we are leaving this system.